And good evening. It's March 21st, 2024. Welcome back to another episode of Sons of the Father, as we're continuing our discussions on The Chosen, Season 3, created by Dallas Jenkins. Now, tonight, we're going to finish exploring Season 3, Episode 8, the season finale, Sustenance. This is our Part 3. During this series, my dad, John Warren, my brother, Jim Warren, and of course myself, we'll be having a conversation and reflecting on things that have impacted us along our way. So, welcome again to the Sons of the Father on the Dusty Feet. And of course, before we forget, if you find these kinds of podcasts useful, that's when you click the subscribe button. The reminders, they just help you. But also, if you think these might be useful to others, that's when you click the like button, because that is the way the YouTube chooses to share these to more people if they wish. So, Sustenance, Part 3. The storm is coming in more ways than one.
Oh, yes.
There you go. Okay, gents, we're going to wrap up Season 3. This will be an interesting, should be a very good conversation. So, Daddy-o, kick us off.
Well, as I said, last episode, our last show, this has so much going on, and it just got more, I thought, more chaotic, more complicated, more confusing in a beautiful way as it got towards the end. So many different characters. Shmuel, hello, where was he going with his comments to Jesus, and the touching part with just looking at Quintus touching his son, and her name just Peter's wife,
Eden,
right, in the water, and the where they had come to a decision in themselves. She didn't wait for Jesus to show up to question him as Peter did. But her friends came, community, which is what the Christian walk is all about. It's about community. And I think we saw some of that beginning and some of that strengthening where there was chaos between 3 or 4 groups all sitting there listening to Jesus. And when he got done, they walked out arm in arm. Yeah. And that community starting to build. And the thing that we still need and want today is community. And I hope that when we first started going to church way back in the late 60s, there was a lot of division coming from a Catholic. You didn't go. Your grandmother cried when she found out I was going to a Baptist church because I was lost.
Yeah.
And that's, she didn't throw me out. She didn't get mad at me, but she just felt that. And when here comes Jesus and he's knocking down those walls, one brick at a time. And in all of the confusion, he's bringing this calmness, as he did with the storm. He had this horrible storm, and he just says, boom, peace, bring peace, or be peaceful. And it just stopped. And that's the way I'm hoping as Dallas goes forward, as well as our church in today, that we can do that same thing, that we can find, our church has a mug they hand out, same Bible, different church. It's true. I mean, we read the same Bible, but it is a different church. But why can't we be friends? Why can't we worship together and share together and love together?
Mm-hmm.
And I saw some of that in here, and I got excited about it. So
Okay, Jimbo.
What you up
What?
to?
Interesting that you said that phrase, same Bible, different church. What struck me in this one, I'm getting a different perspective of the Jewish spiritual leadership at the time. We think of the Pharisees and we think they were, everybody, at that level was bad and only Jesus was good. And we're realizing, no, they weren't all bad. And some of them had genuine hearts. Some of them had justification for what they thought was right based on the law that they had studied and known. It wasn't that they were necessarily trying to attack Jesus. They were trying to protect the law and to protect the people in their understanding. And Jesus and the Pharisees were using the same scriptures and how they were being utilized. But then even to see like Joseph meeting with Mary, and as a rabbi, he's her counselor. We don't think about the rabbis as that, as somebody who helped people when they were hurting. And that's what he was there for. And he was using scripture to do that.
You're talking about Mary or Eden?
I mean, Eden. I'm sorry, Eden.
Right.
Thank you. Eden. And then even Shmuel, the interaction with he and Jesus, Shmuel, you see all of a sudden, it was kind of one of those, wait, what? That's not the response I was expecting from him. It's obviously, you saw a little bit of genuineness in him of, I'm conflicted here and I'm not sure what to do. And Jesus didn't try to fix the conflict. He just invited him to come along. And I loved that analogy. That Jesus doesn't come in and necessarily fix all of the questions and problems. He just says, I'll walk with you. And in the course of that is when we begin to understand how to live differently. And so it was just fun watching all that unfold. And then, of course, we'll talk a little bit more in a sec, but about Eden's journey and Peter's journey and this beautiful interweaving of symbolism in that. But that was kind of my main realization as I watched this episode.
Yeah, there's a lot going on with the leadership at the time. And Jimmy, you bring a good point. And Dallas seems to be aware of that in his storytelling process. Is that they are all over the place. You have people, like I said, when they're walking down the road and they tell them about this miracle in the feeding, and he says, as he's walking away, he's going, I tell them we just had a miracle, just fed, and you're complaining about who we sit at the table with. You're not really getting the point. Yeah. You're missing the forest for the trees, so to speak, right? And you're going, oh my gosh, what's interesting, and I've tried to do this on the Dusty Feet, and for me in particular, when we talk about putting sandals on, right? And both Mackie and Foreman, Mackie in particular, is really good at getting the sandals of everyone.
Yeah.
And you're going to find something you're going to connect with them with. And I know we give the Pharisees a hard time, and I go, put the sandals on, and then I'll, address something in what you would think is your religious, and all of a sudden you're going to react probably similar. You're going to find yourself in that. So you're like, okay, maybe we should pump the brakes a little bit and figure out where we are in that and where we don't want to be in that. Yeah. Behavior that we do and don't want to see. The direction he went with Shmuel surprised me. I've told you guys this, that I didn't think they were going to go there with Shmuel. I thought Shmuel was going to be the Ramroad rail rider here. And he still might be. But he's going to do it conflicted because he's here at this moment now. And when him and Jesus are walking, because he's walking up the road, he separated himself from the other two rabbis. They need witnesses. and yet they're all around. But that's it. They keep saying, we need witnesses, and they're walking by people. And he's realizing something's happened. Yeah. And then when he says, one, I recognize you. And then that's when he realizes what's going on. Then he was, but I see that you're troubled.
Yeah.
And he meets him and he says, hey, I need to go pray. Come pray with me. You don't have to say anything.
Right.
You don't have to say a word. You can just sit. So do you mind if I ask you questions after I'm done? If you still want to.
Right. I love that line.
If you still want to, then we'll talk. We don't get any, that's not, we have no biblical story that we're bouncing that off of. Or the fact that we see the scene afterwards as it goes over, we don't see that interaction at all.
Yeah.
All we know is there was another encounter between Shmuel and Jesus. When Eden goes to talk to Yosef, okay, so now we're getting to Eden's challenges and confliction. And Jimmy, you hinted at this, and I liked it, was that Eden is dealing with the loss, and she has the physical element of the loss. Okay, the physical body pain, the physical encounter, and yet she is coming to grips with that, but she's also trying to help her husband come to grips with it and that struggle. That's the difference between Simon and Eden. Eden was much more focused on her husband than Simon was on his wife.
Yeah.
And I saw that. And then when she was with her friends with the rabbi, and he's saying, well, maybe something from Torah or something from the scriptures that will be uplifting. And he's going, I don't think that would be genuine or beneficial. Truthful was his word. And he said, but then he pulls up the Psalm of David. And he says, hey, there's these Psalms that are written with pain, agony, and despair, desperation. And that's okay to feel those. And then to know where your strength is in it. So I enjoyed that part as they rolled through it, because we're getting to this point of intersection. Yeah. So
and Bob, I know there were a lot of I had some questions, but I'm sure there were a lot of people who were watching it too, as she was going through the mikvah.
Okay.
And that process, that they might not be aware of what that was in Jewish culture.
Right.
And maybe it's connection to baptism, that kind of a thing. So you could probably elaborate on that a little bit.
I can actually, and thank you. Okay, so the mikvah, and that goes back in Jewish lore. There's actually that's not a story. That's not a tradition. It's God said, when you do this, right? And the mikvah has requirements, meaning it needs to be running water. So the room you see Eden step down in, that water, there's actually water running in and running out.
Right. And
it's a constant flowing of water. It's not like we grew up in a Baptist church where there's that big bathtub up there with that. It's not that.
Right.
Okay. It has, that's why Joseph mentions when they're sitting in his room, and he said, I know you went to the river. I know you've done the mikvah already at the river, which is a running water source, right?
Right.
So she does that. He said, but sometimes going to a mikvah with a prayerful state of mind, this could be a new path forward. Right. The mikvah is what we call baptism is mikvah. It's been around a long time. John was doing the same thing in the river. We just have it in our tradition, right? that is this one-time thing that goes along with the prayer, and you're done. And in a Hebrew culture, in a God culture, it is a repetitive event, meaning there will be elements in it during normal life that you're going to need. You're unclean, and you go there to be clean. It performs both a practical by getting cleansed in the water. It's running so it doesn't bother infect anybody else, but there's also a spiritual element to it, of course. And there's a lot of crossroads in lives. There's a lot of things that go on, and you'll go there, and you'll go through the mikveh for these crossroads, these challenges that you have. And you say it's a point where you go with a prayerful state of mind. It said you will have many different intersections in life of which the mikveh could be beneficial if we tend to take it that way. I do agree that mikveh in a God follower walk is a start. In other words, that's one of those when you're teaching Gentiles, because they have no knowledge of mikveh. They don't understand. It's not a requirement anywhere else, right? It's not something, it's not a part of, it's not ingrained in the culture where it's ingrained here. And he said, so that's a start. This is a major point for you. You're going to make this crossroads declaration. This starts it. Yeah. And
I liked what you said about being a crossroads. When we take that same word and use it with so many, Shmuel, crossroads, Quintus, crossroads, Eden, crossroads, Peter, crossroads, maybe Atticus, crossroads. There's so many places in this. I hadn't thought about it until when you said that word. There's so much of that in this episode. And a crossroads means you can go either way. Yeah. You don't necessarily have to go the way we think in retrospect. Oh, well, they're going to do this. No, we don't know. And that's in our own lives. They're full of crossroads. As long as I've been around, crossroads. You know, a girlfriend that was pregnant, crossroads. Yeah. Do you have more kids? Crossroads. Go to barber school, crossroads. You know, they're just that, and you can look back on your lives as believers. That's one of the beautiful things that I feel about living a long time and being able to look back and see where God was in those crossroads. And that's where he is here. He's just peppered in there in the crossroads. So thank you for that word. That's a great word.
Jimmy, did I cover any of the points? Was there a point that I was missing that I maybe should have?
No, that was good. Just I knew that there would probably be questions, and then of course, as we talked about, there's that intersection between the two water experiences as we tie in now what Peter was experiencing. Right.
So now we're at the guys are packing up. We have a really good picture of them exhausted. They're tired. There's a practical element to feeding thousands, and they're tired. He said they just want to go home. You know, so Peter comes up with Simon does this great idea and says, I'll get a boat. He gets a boat. He gets in the boat. Matthew looks out and says, there's a storm coming and we need to get moving. And Jesus says, hey, you go, I'm going to go. And then we get the Shmuel interaction with that. But they go, jump in the boat and go. Now they're on the water. They're rowing and it's stormy. And they're fishermen. Water isn't fear, but drowning in water as the storm hits is. And they're in the middle of this storm and they're like, we've been in the same spot for an hour. It's one of those deals, right? You're rowing, and not going anywhere. And then John looks up and he, like us, same thing. There's no way that's going to register in our heads. And then he looks it up, and again, we see Jesus walking out on the water. I thought this was interesting. It's a messy scene. I don't know what we pictured. Because we tell this story with like flannel graphs in Sunday school, So you got the little waves, and you got Jesus standing on the water. You got guys in the boat, and Simon comes out and goes over there. He sinks in the little waves. He gets this little and it's flannel graph, and it's neat, and it's child storybook stuff. But we get here, and it's raging, and it's just, it's tumultuous, and Jesus is walking on the water, but he's wet, and it's raining, and the wind is blowing his hair around, and he's soaked, and he's still walking out, and he's still going to meet them there. It's messy. It's a messy, messy scene. I liked it. Dad, how did you take when the struggle with Simon, and he says, "Do you have faith?"
Well, what you said, the picture you were painting was really something, because it was crazy, tumultuous, but he wasn't worried. He wasn't scared at all. He knew exactly what was going on, what he was going to do. He could calm it just like that, but he was doing it for a specific reason, and that was to get Simon on the same line that he was on. And until that point, Peter says, "I made a mistake. I don't belong here. I'm a loser." He had given up on it. And so here they are with all this craziness going on. And Jesus, again, like he was when he was in the boat, and another time in the sea when the storm came up, and he was well, come on out. If you tell me to come, and the minute we take our eyes off of Christ, we can go. In my personal experience, I can go south if I don't keep my eyes on him. In our men's group today, we were talking about that, and that was a thing that keeps us, quote unquote, sober. Is to keep our eyes on him, and that's what he did. And then, of course, he wraps his arms around Peter, and Peter, "Don't let go of me." And what Jesus was saying is, "I never let go of you.
Yeah,
you let go of me. You're the one that walked." He didn't say that, but that was the thing. God never moves. He never lets go of us. "I won't. Don't worry about it. I got you. I got you." And it's what he said to him. And it was very touching, and brings a lot of memories of my own life, and times in there when things got crazy, and he was the only thing there was to hang on to was Jesus. So,
Jimmy?
I'm reminded that as you were talking, Dallas has a recovery / 12-step background. And I envisioning that scene, I think it's step 2, or is it step 3? That you come to believe that, there's a power greater than yourself that can restore you to sanity.
You're powerless. That's 2.
Yeah.
Step
that's
2,
right. 2 is powerless.
Yep.
And, Peter, I think, got to that point where it's like, I'm realizing I can't do this, but Jesus, you can. If you want me to, help me to walk outside the boat. And then, of course, then he gets out, and then he's in the middle of it. And I totally agree. It is not the flannel graph version of, what I always pictured him like floating just slightly above the water, in this angelic glow, and Peter sees him, but no, they were afraid. So, what was this ghostly looking figure that was coming at them? And he was wet, and Peter was wet, and their feet were wet. And then Peter starts sinking, and, he reaches out. And I loved the fact that as Jesus put his hand out, It wasn't a, motion and then Peter just starts rising kind of thing. No, they locked hands, and pulls him out. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it was that physical connection that to me solidified the spiritual lesson that Peter was needing to hear. And then of course the whole "don't let me go," part of it.
Yeah. There's there's Dallas does a good job of double entendres, There's a storm coming. There's more to it than just this water. And when Simon at this point is, and he mentions it to John when he's talking, when he says, I don't belong here. I think he made a mistake.
Yeah. God
can make a mistake. Okay. And the first thing people say is God doesn't make mistakes. And I go, he talks about it. Okay. He talks about it. He has a flood. And he says, I regret doing that. Okay. So before he gets so jumpy, just take it, because you might go back and read, and there's more than one story. You got Moshe, and they're going through, and the people are whining, and he's going, I regret, maybe I just need to start again with you. And Moses said, you can't do that. So Simon is in this state, and he's maybe you made a mistake with me because I just don't have it, whatever it is. And two, the frustration that he sees them, you're healing them. The point that he made earlier, that he said, what do you fear? He says he's going to choose them.
Yep.
And that's a gut punch. Because we want it to be us, for whatever us is, and whatever our thing is. And you realize it might not be for you now, ever. And I think about this because the Holocaust still haunts me for lots of reasons. But this is just one of those things. This is the choice. Okay. And his struggling through this. And then when he gets to this point, which is don't let me go, it's I let go of you. It's more than physical. It's not just get me out of the water. It's I don't want to leave you again. I'm torn in this. Don't let me go while I struggle through this. And then you have this event, and how did I wrote this? And then we have this almost explosive intersection of water events. Simon on the water, Eden in the water. And as you see him sink, and she's stepping in the water, and there's so much going on. And then she comes out of the water. He's saying, don't let me go. And what does she say? Don't let him go. And even that is a double entendre. It goes both ways. She's pleading to Simon, don't let Jesus go. She's also expecting Jesus, don't let Simon go. There's just on so many levels of that connection in the middle of chaos, in the middle of pain, in the middle of not understanding. They don't understand. They don't get it. Like he says, they're choosing you. I lost a baby. I don't understand. And he's going, and then I hope it didn't seem trite when he says, I give these challenges to make you better. That's a hard pill to swallow because we always want to be rescued. Right? That's a hard pill to swallow. But the challenge is that hopefully with Dad, like you were saying, with Jesus pulling them out, that you're stronger on the other side for it. Yeah. however that plays out in that crossroad. Yeah.
Well, you're never
Choosing
going
to
to
make that choice.
we're never going to be able to figure that one out.
Yeah.
The years that I spent in Romania and Ghana and you name the country, and you look at those people and you think this is wrong. So you'll never be able to explain it if I try to figure it out on my level.
Yeah.
You have to look at the big. It's kind of like spanking your kid. I don't even know if they do that anymore, but the kid sure doesn't like it. But it says in there that gets my attention. I don't want that. So it's a negative, but it really, in God's plan, who can,
Yeah.
I'll never understand it, but this was an episode that was full of it.
Yeah.
Full of those kind of moments that you can't understand why this happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Jimmy?
I remember hearing Peter, that whole thing of, I'm afraid he's going to choose them. And as you guys were talking, the phrase that came to my mind is, we want to be the object, not the object lesson. And the more I'm hearing that phrase go in my head over and over again, the reality is I want to be whatever God wants me to be.
Mhm.
If he wants me to be the object lesson, I want to be okay with that. If he wants me to be the object, I want to be okay with that.
Yeah.
And just to be able to have that kind of connection with God, that it doesn't matter what, we're just together in it, whatever that looks like. Yeah. And so that's just been resonating in my head.
That's a strong point. We have Paul, the great example of that, when because think about it. If Paul's in jail, and Paul, if he was arrogant, would be saying, why am I here? I'm you pointing at God, going, you knock me off my donkey, then I spend a number of years getting things wrapped around and straight. Then I spend a bunch of this going over, and then you put me in jail for what? You could hear that, and it would be, we hear where, I don't know, and I'm talking even local churchy pets, and they go through something, they're in jail or da-da-da-da, and they're all about them, da-da-da, and you go, really? Are you reading the book that we're supposed to be living like and through and from, and that object of, and you go to a point where Paul, again, is in jail, and earthquake, the doors are open, everybody could bolt. A bunch of the guys probably did, and Paul's sitting there, and the jailer is terrified because he knows it's going to cost him. It's not like today where you go, it's not my fault. Power went out and all the doors opened up and the earthquake happened, so everybody ran out. This guy is terrified because it's going to come back on him. And Paul sits and waits. I'm not sure I'd do that. Yeah. But like you said, I want to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. I want to be there. I'd like to think I'm more aware of that. We'll see when the test comes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What Isaiah says, here I am, send me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he lived some uncomfortable times.
Here I am, send Jane.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I'm looking forward to next season.
Me too.
Yes. Yeah. People, please read Psalm 77. Please read Psalm 77. You will not be disappointed, because that was a psalm that was referenced in that. And please do, because I think, again, you won't regret it if there's everything about reading or regretting anything in Scripture. Okay, so this wraps up season 3. We know we have to wait for season 4 to be available for all of us, right? We know that some episodes have already released in theaters, right? But not all have been seen for everybody, at least the beginning of season 4 yet.
Right.
So like we've been asking, please, if you have a favorite scene that you'd like us to revisit and discuss, or you just have other questions about any of the episodes, just let us know. Either drop us an email at bob@TheDustyFeet.com, or you can just leave it in the comments, because we'd love to be able to revisit or respond to any queries that you might have. And again, thank you all. Shalom, shalom, and thanks for being with us tonight to wrap up season 3 of The Chosen with the Sons of the Father on the Dusty Feet. Until season 4, enjoy.
Amen.